U.S. military action against Iran, following the deadly crackdown on protesters across cities and towns throughout the country, appears to have returned to the policy agenda in Washington. Unconfirmed reports say that more than 500 people have been killed in the Iranian protests, though some human rights groups claim the real number could be several times higher, an uprising that represents one of the biggest challenges to clerical rule since the 1979 revolution. The protests, which began on December 28th after a surge in inflation and the collapse of the national currency, have since evolved into a broader movement against the country's leadership. Both Washington and Tehran have signaled a willingness to talk, but U.S. President Donald Trump, citing reports of violent actions against protesters, has said he may still take action. On January 10th, aboard Air Force One, he told reporters, "We may meet with them. A meeting is being arranged, but we may have to act because of what is happening before the meeting." On January 11th, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said, "The Islamic Republic of Iran is not seeking war, but it is fully prepared for it." So, if diplomacy fails, what options does Washington have? On the positive side, limited strikes on symbolic targets would carry lower risks for U.S. forces and for civilian casualties. Such attacks would also be easier to conduct within the U.S. military's regional capabilities, and in theory could be carried out without involving America's Gulf allies. However, analysts say this option has several weaknesses, the most important being that it could allow the regime to rally patriotic support and divert attention from the grievances driving the nationwide protests, while inflicting little meaningful damage. It could also send protesters the message that Washington will not rush to save them while Iranian security forces continue killing and arresting them. Potential targets could include facilities such as a police barracks, Basiji militia sites, or Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps (IRGC) bases. A more coordinated campaign against the IRGC could be more effective, especially if expanded to include strikes on Iran's missile facilities, command and control systems, and other security forces. One problem is that the U.S. Navy currently lacks sufficient numbers and capacity in the region. The closest aircraft carrier, the USS Abraham Lincoln, is now in the South China Sea conducting live fire exercises. Reaching the Persian Gulf would take several days. The U.S. also has military bases in the region, in countries such as Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar. But reports say these countries have asked Washington not to take military action. Many would be cautious about an Iranian counterattack. During the 12-day conflict this summer, when Israel and the United States targeted Iran's nuclear facilities, Iran's missile strike on an airbase in Qatar caused concern. That strike was largely symbolic, but Iran has threatened to retaliate against any new U.S. attack, and this time the response could be more serious and effective. Fossil fuel exports from America's Gulf allies, which pass through the Strait of Hormuz, could be disrupted. Israel could also be targeted, raising the specter of a broader regional conflict. The current situation is existential for the Islamic Republic. This is a battle that directly targets the nature and essence of the system. If attacked, it will almost certainly retaliate with full force. After the removal of Nicolás Maduro, the former president of Venezuela, could Ali Khamenei, Iran's supreme leader, be next on the U.S. Special Forces arrest list? A Venezuela-style operation seems unlikely. According to media reports, U.S. forces around Venezuela were deployed in far greater numbers and also benefited from intelligence sources inside the regime. Another scenario could be assassination, removing the head of the regime to create a power struggle inside Iran. This option also depends heavily on extremely precise intelligence. Its major weakness is that the outcome would be unpredictable and could lead to more chaos and bloodshed. But a new regime, even one led by the IRGC, might be willing to negotiate with Washington. Michael Rubin, a former Pentagon official and senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, said on January 6th, "I think this is quite likely."